So in this tutorial we are working on the animation is swapping when we swap weapon and our stats. The attack speed and the damage and attack range is changing depending of what weapon we have, and we will use this in a later video when we are going to add our first ranged weapon. But for now it will look like this, and then we can change, and then we can also smack him one. So let's add, so when we change weapon, we also change our damage currently when we are swapping between weapons. Ah, sorry. So currently when we are swapping between weapons, it doesn't affect our stats. As we can see on the player, we have here the stats, and it doesn't affect us if we are with armor or not with armor, and it doesn't affect the animation. So let's change all of this now. So let's go into our scripts and just open the player stats. So what we're gonna need to do is oh so we're gonna change a lot of stuff, and inside this we're gonna make a serialized field that will take our equipped equipment chains, and we will call it my equipment. And then you will make this to my attack speed instead. Or actually, when we do that, let's just rename it to my attack speed, apply, and rename this one to my damage, apply, and we're gonna take public float my attack speed. What can change for my, oh, sorry, not attack speed, my attack range, like that. And we also will say we need a public void. Oh, sorry, we need to write up here, public void update. That. And for now, we're gonna stop there. Then we go into the weapon. And inside the weapon, we are going to have a lot of serialized fields now. So we have the serialized field, float, weapon range, and serialized field weapon damage, and serialized field weapon speed. And instead, we are going to keep these also, but we can change this one to equipped prefab, that, so we actually know what is going on. And then we will have to change a bit here in the spawn, say if equip 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 prefab is not equal to nil, then we can do this part, and if our my override is not equal to nil, then we can do this part, and then we will make a public float get damage, and in here we will say return weapon damage like that, and we're actually gonna make 3 of them. So get attack speed, return, what did we call it? We called it weapon speed, and get attack range, and return weapon range. So right now we're doing so on the weapon, we can put in all the values, how long can we shoot with the bow or hit with the sword, and how much damage and how much speed does it have. And then we, inside our player stats, we can do all the calculation where we say if we have some abilities that maybe change how it works together. So inside the equipment, we will add in the unarmed here, and then we will make, let's see, let's just, for practice for now, we put in weapon and say weapon sword, and we make another serialized field and say weapon unarmed, and then we will change inside here, change that to rename equip weapon like that, and let's see, down in this one we will change to take in a weapon called weapon, and we can remove this part, and we go to the top, and we will add a current weapon, so public weapon current weapon, and set it to null, and then we go back and say current weapon is equal to weapon, so current weapon equals to the weapon we are holding, and then we have weapon spawn, that looks fine. Then we get an error up here, which is because we need to tell it what we are passing in. So in here we have the weapon sword, if in case you equip it two-handed, and we can make a new case, case equipped it item dot unarmed, and then say equip weapon is unarmed. Do we just call it unarmed? Let's call it unarmed whip. Item dot unarmed. Then equipped weapon is unarmed whip instead. Then we do like this, and we say break. So now we can have the two-handed encrypted, and we have the one-handed encrypted. Yeah. Do we need to change more? Let's see if we do the exit. Nothing. Now this needs to be unarmed, and this need to be unarmed. So when we put set, we are going unarmed. Put X, we are taking out two-handed. This is just later, this will be what is inside our inventory, but for now we just leave it here. And then we go back to the player stats, and we gonna make my damage is equal to my equipment dot current weapon dot get damage, and my attack speed is equal to my equipment current weapon dot get attack speed. So now we are getting all the information from the items. My current range is equal to my equipment dot current weapon dot attack range, like that. And we can just mark them and extract methods and call it calculate stats, like that. I actually think that kind of works now. Let's just check up that everything works. So in here we need to, I think, not the network client, not the AI, not the camera, not the military, but the combat player. This one we need to remove and change a bit. So we just gonna remove it for now, and gonna see what error we got from that. And at that point we need to go in and pick up the stats. So we have the stats under player, no, p stats dot my attack range. And yeah, that one seems right. Yeah, rest should work. Let's look at the prefab. The prefabs go into the player. Let's see, my equipment is the player, and the weapon sword will be the two-hand, and the current weapon, oh, we need to create the on. And so let's go into weapons, and this is folder two-hand sword. All that inside. Then we will create a new weapon, call it unarmed, and make a folder unarmed and put inside there. And we will say unarmed range is 2, the damage is a bit low, but the attack speed is high. It doesn't have any of these, which is fine. Then we go back to the player and say unarmed whip is then this one, and unarmed is this, and yeah, you can set it nothing. Let's try it out. So currently nothing, and look at the player. The player is carrying 1 attack speed, 3 damage, and 2 attack range. We have currently, oh, we need to remove this part. But let's just, so we can swap around the weapons, but kind of get confused by this part. So current weapon is that, but yeah. Also, I think we need to go into the prefabs, prefabs, the weapon two-handed, and we look at this, it's half reset. So we're gonna take the two-handed weapon in and say range is 2, damage is 5, speed is 3. Oh, just 2. And then we talk about something we wanted to remove. Let's just start with this, and then I can see what we talked about to remove. I kind of forgot it. So inside the player, we have weapon sword, the unarmed, so and our stats is currently 132. And when we equip this weapon, we get higher stats, and we have a current weapon is this, and then we unarm, get lower stats. So now equipped item works. This is the one that I actually would like to see if we can remove. So let's go into the prefab player, let's see weapon, let's see player. This one, this one. So an equipment change. So what happened is we remove this. Nothing really. So let's remove it. Test again. Oh, so host. There we go. And look at the player, the stats changes. So now the stats changes. Now we need to see if when we are hitting the target. So let's see here we have, I think it is this one. Yeah, let's do like this. So this is the health. So let's do unarmed. We hit 3, and then here we do 5. So that part works, and we have a faster attack speed and a slower attack speed. And inside player, see. So we have something with um, the weapons and the override animation, but we did not. I think when we are entering, it should be correct. So we have the correct here. So yeah. So what we need to fix is the overriding. So it's kind of easy. You go into the weapon, the unarmed here, and you add a new animator override. You can create, let's see here, animator override controller. I call it unarmed. And then you can say it comes from the player controller. And we say, okay, it should be fight idle R, so it should be the same. And the crush puns are that. And then you can test it again. So after we added the crush puns and the idle fight, we need to make sure that it's inside this unarmed. And if you want like a prefab down here, you don't need it, but you can make one. Then you actually just have like an empty game object that is 000, where you don't need to have that. And then you go into your scripts and you go into the equipment chains and make sure that this is public, and you have this line here instead. So I had a little bit of issues when testing out, and so I made a lot of changes and came back to like this way it will function. So go into the game, a new, we have the crunch, we have the weapon, we have the crunch, weapon, crunch, we can hit, we can smack. And there's like a little error with the attack speed and stuff, but I kind of don't want people to be able to change weapon inside the fight, but instead to do it outside the fight, so it's not a problem for me right now. But probably maybe later I will tidy it up a bit and make it better, but it kind of not breaking the game right now. It's kind of making a little bit of a bug that you can abuse, but in the late game you cannot like abuse the bug. the way I want it, so I changed it later. So the main goal about these tutorials is that we break it small steps by step, and then when we like add the inventory system and equipment system, we are changing the coding a bit again, and that way we will take it slowly and progress in that way instead. Because right now I'm not settled on how I want to make the inventory system, so I don't want to write too much code to delete it again and adapt. It's easier to adapt to something fairly easily to read and then build on.